Hey guys, welcome to lesson 2.1.4 day 1. It's really nothing new. Today is just a review day, so this video is really just to kind of help you solidify things if you are still confused on them. So yeah, let's get started. Completing the square is the first focus here. It is going to be on the quiz this week, unlike last week, so I just want to make sure that you guys are all clear on that. So when you're completing the square, the setup is similar to factoring, but it changes very, very quickly. Okay, so it's not quite the same. The first step is to put your first term in the top left box. Okay, and from there, you take your middle term and you split it in two. Alright, so if we do 4x divided by 2, we get 2x, and that is what we're going to put in both of these diagonal boxes. Okay, and remember, essentially what we're doing is just taking this term and splitting it evenly to share between these two boxes. Once you've done that, we can go ahead and start filling out the outside of the box. We know that these spots are going to be taken by x and x, because x times x is x squared. And then x times what equals 2x? Well, that would be 2. So that would go here and here, because this is also 2x. Once you've done that, you can fill in this fourth box, which is just 2 times 2. That'll give us 4. Now remember, we have to figure out how to get from this number to this number. So if I'm at 4 and I need to get to 9, and I need to do it in a way where I'm adding or I'm subtracting, then I know I can add 5 to get to 9. So I would just be like, okay, well, plus 5 equals 9. That's what I wanted. So I know that my final equation, let's use a fun color. I like using this pink one. All right, my final equation is going to be y equals, and then you do this part that you got on the outside, x plus 2 squared. It's always whatever's there squared. And then this plus 5 that we use to get us to 9 is what we use for the end of our equation. All right, and that is it. Then you are done. All right, and now if you were trying to find the vertex off of your graphing form equation, remember that's opposite of h comma k. So if our h is positive 2 and our k is positive 5, and we want opposite hk, we get negative 2 and then positive 5. Because our h was originally positive, so we turn it negative, and then our k was originally positive, we keep that one the same. All right, on to our next example. So same starting, you take your first term, throw it in the top left box, take your next term, and you split it in two. Now, it's kind of annoying when it's not an even number because then it's going to be a decimal, but it's okay. We live in an imperfect world, and that's just how it be sometimes. So 5x divided by 2 gives us 2.5x, so we're going to put a 2.5x in each of these boxes. Alright, and next, as usual, we put our x and x. 2.5 is needed here and here, because x times 2.5 is how we would achieve that 2.5x. Now, in the fourth box, we have to just multiply those numbers on the outside. So 2.5 times 2.5, that's going to get us to 6.25. All right, and now we get to play that game where we need to know how to get from 6.25 to 2 with only addition or subtraction. So do some thinking and you realize, okay, I can do minus 4.25. That will get me the 2 that I'm looking for. So my final equation is going to be y equals x plus 2.5 squared. Pay attention to the color coding that I'm doing here. Minus 4.25. Right, the 4.25 came from here, and the x plus 2.5 came from over here. And that's my entire equation. Okay, And for my vertex, opposite of h comma k, just like before. So my h is 2.5, so I'm going to change the sign and turn it negative. My k, we keep it the same, so negative 4.25. Okay, and that is my final vertex. All right. Hopefully you guys are feeling more comfortable with completing the square. Please remember you will need to be able to do that for the quiz on Friday. All right, next up, we are practicing describing the transformations in each equation. So remember that each letter plays a role, right? Here we have A, H, and K. We also have to watch out for those negative signs that we throw in the front sometimes. So the negative sign always causes us to reflect our graph. So we are going to do a reflection. Okay. It's an x-axis reflection because it's horizontal. It just flips downwards. And next, we know we have a 2 here. Now, because it is a 2, which is a number bigger than 1, it is going to be a vertical stretch by a factor of 2. Okay. Next is our h here. It's a negative 5, and that tells us that we are going to move to the right by 5. Remember, h is always doing the opposite of what we want it to do. All right, and last but certainly not least, we have a k here, and that tells us that we're going to go up 6 because it's positive. We have k, h, and A. All right, so that's all for that one. And then to find the vertex, okay, again, it's opposite of h comma k. So my vertex is positive 5, and then just 6. All right, on to the next one. So for this equation, we don't have a negative sign, so we don't have to worry about flipping our graph or reflecting, but we do have an a value. It is right here. It is 3. Again, because it's a number bigger than 1, that tells us it's going to be a stretch. Vertical stretch by a factor of 3. All right, now something important to note here is that we don't have an h, right? There is no parentheses, there's no number in parentheses, so we're just literally not going to move left or right. We can just ignore that piece. But we do have a k, and our k is 4, and that tells us that we're moving up 4. All right, and finally, our vertex is opposite of h comma k. Our h is 0, right? So because if we don't have an h, we can just put it as 0. And so the opposite thing wouldn't affect it, right? Positive 0, negative 0, it doesn't matter. But we do have a k, so that's what we put there. Okay. H is 0 because there is no h. All right, so make sure you understand how to describe transformations just by looking at these equations. All right, the final thing we need to be able to do is write the equation of a graph when you have the picture. So here we have this red graph, red parabola, and we want to find out how the original transformed to get there. I like to draw the original because it just, helps me see more easily what transformations took place when I can see the original right next to the new. It's not necessary by any means. All right, I'm sorry that's ugly, but we're going with it. So we want to focus on the vertex. I can barely talk. How did we get from blue to red? So the first thing we want to notice is, well, we obviously moved up. We went from 0 to 2. So that means we moved up 2. You always want to write down the transformations first before you try to write your equation, because it's just going to make it way easier for you to write your equation after you do that. Okay, the next thing we would note is that, let's do this. We went to the left. Now, we started at 0 and we ended up at -3. That tells us that we moved to the left 3. The last thing we did was we flipped upside down. Obviously, the original was opening upwards. The new one's opening down, so we had a reflection. Now, once you identify all these pieces, it also can be helpful to identify the letters that they identify with. So like up 2 means that we have a K value of 2. Left 3 means that we have an H value of +3, remember, because it's always opposite with H. Reflection just tells us we don't need a negative sign in our equation. Okay, so now we are ready to write our equation. We have y equals, now remember, I have this in directions too. When I tell you to write an equation from a graph, don't worry about stretches or compressions. You can put a 1 there if you want. Don't need to, doesn't make a difference. So don't worry about that. We do need a negative sign. That always goes up front. Since there is no a value, we can go ahead and get started with this part. Now our h is a +3, so we're going to need a +3 in the parentheses, because that's where h goes, as you can see in your general form. And then lastly, we need our k, which is +2, so I'll do a +2. And that is our final equation. If you graphed this in your calculator or on the internet, you would get this exact graph. All right. Moving down to the next example, the final example. I'll go ahead and draw another one of our beautiful parent parabolas. I really tried. Maybe if I go this way. Okay, all right. Okay, so now, how did we move from blue vertex to red vertex? Well, we definitely ended up moving down. We went from 0 down to, looks like -3 is where that red one is. So I'm going to say down 3. That tells me I have a k value of, you guessed it, -3. Next, I moved to the right. I started at 0, and then this red vertex is at an x value of 2, so I moved to the right 2. So I'll put that there. And remember, that gives us an h value of -2, because h is obnoxious and does what it wants, not what we want it to do. Now that's really all that happens, because we didn't flip or anything, and we don't have to worry about a values with these problems. So we're ready to write our equation. So y equals, and then we can start straight away with the parentheses. So x, now h comes next, because our h is -2. We are going to write -2 here, -2 squared. Did I square the last one? Yes, I did. And our k is -3, so it's a -3. Now, know that, I'm still using this general form, and I didn't write it again down here, but you're still following it. Be very careful so as not to mix up your h and your k. I see that all the time. That's like the most common mistake, aside from mixing up the sign for h. All right, that is all for today. I hope you guys are able to do the practice problems.